do a little bit of emergency surgery here because I drilled a hole in here. This is the part where the hand that holds this big leaf goes in and sockets into this right here. And so I drilled into here a hole for a wire nail to support that. What I didn't realize is I thought I had printed these hollow with exits, but apparently the exits didn't quite go all the way through. So after I drilled that hole, the pressure started changing and the uncured resin from inside the hollow area started bubbling out through. So I've drilled a hole big enough for my new handy dandy homemade LED light that's UV to go into. And because I could put this outside and try to cure it in there, but I'm not super confident at this point. I don't want to mess with a whole lot, so I'm just going to stick that in there for a while and hopefully that'll cure what's inside there. And I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to do the same thing on here. Now I'm not too worried. I'm going into an area that's just a single color and it's basically just Tamiya Purple X16, so it will just need patching and painting, so that's not too hard to do. But the other thing I did was once I got the hole in there, I took a pipette. I don't have one handy here, but I have pipettes I use when I'm spray painting. So if you don't know, this is what I'm talking about. This is a pipette that has markings on the side for graduation. I never used those. Anyhow, I shoved this down in the hole and I suctioned out some of the uncured resin, and there's quite a bit in there. And then I poured it into a container that I store resin that's been used in, and then I took a separate pipette and I very carefully dripped in some alcohol, some isopropyl alcohol, and once I got that to where it wasn't going to like spurt out the holes, and it did start to come out this hole here that I drilled in the, or I'd put in the end. So I guess that hole did go through, just not very well. So because this should have drained, but it didn't. So anyway, so yeah, once I got the alcohol in there, I just kind of took this and kind of suction pumped it a little bit to kind of squish it around, and then I sucked it out and dumped it as well. So I think once I give it the UV treatment, it'll probably be fine, I hope. See, make sure I don't have resin curing on that. How's this looking in here? That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and do this other one now and make sure that I don't have uncured resin sitting there waiting to go off. Because supposedly if you leave resin in an enclosed space like this with no way to get out, over time it will create a crack and leak, which is not desirable. And there's a whole debate about whether or not you should print solid or not. So I'm working on this other one, and this one's actually been harder to work with because it seems like it's got more junk stuck in it than the other one did, or at least the other one was able to drain better. But when I stick my UV thing in there, it comes out, I don't know if you can see that, but it's got gunk on it. So I take a little bit of alcohol on a swab, just douse the swab real good, and then when I wipe it on that, it just comes right off. And I'm pretty sure that that is cured resin, so I'm not worried about that. Yeah, when I stick it in there, it just clumps right up. But here's a little bit that's come out on the bulb. You can see that. So it's kind of working, I guess. Maybe not as well as I'd liked, but yeah, so now I'm basically going to have to reprint, or not reprint, hopefully I don't have to reprint, but I'm going to have to repaint these arms and sleeves, I think, almost entirely, because I already had to do the flesh and the white because masking just didn't work on this, and now I've got to do a lot of purple. So after a fair bit of work, I've printed a new one to replace this. This was the one that originally was bubbling up, and if I have to, I can retrieve this one, but I figured I'll just start over with this one that I printed solid, and the reason being that I wanted to be able, when I put the pin from the leaf part, which is here, so this is the leaf part now that I've painted it up. I think that turned out pretty well compared to the example in the images. So I think that's pretty good. But I've got this pin here, and I don't know how you can see that little metal pin, and that hooks down into this part here. And my thought was that since this is hollow, you're only going to get the portion that the pin goes through that's about as thick, if you can see this, about as thick as this. If you can see that edge there. So I figure if I print it solid, I'll have a lot more pictures there. Plus I was also able to stick this pin in that'll go into the body, and that goes through both sides, so I can really use epoxy to make that weld in really good, because I'm just worried about this arm supporting the whole weight of the branch, but I don't want the branch or the leaf to be in here permanently, because there's so much weight resting on this. All of this weight is resting on this, but you got this real delicate part through here that I can just envision snapping, especially like if I'm transporting it or something and this starts to wobble a lot. So I want to keep that separate for transport and yet be able to plug it into here pretty solidly. So that is the plan with this. So I'm going to take this out and get it a good coat of primer tonight, so that hopefully I can see how it looks tomorrow, since I do have to work, and then hopefully again I'll be able to have enough of a chance to, if I need to, make any corrections to that, and then start finishing this, because I hope to finish this whole thing this weekend. So I'm just hitting this with a little bit of alcohol to get any like fingerprints or anything like that on. Oh, also I should point out while I'm at it that a considerable amount of work has gone into filling in this hole. So first I put in green stuff that you can see probably there, a little bit of green. Then I put some Tamiya polyester putty on top of it, but I didn't wait long enough for it to dry really hard, so when I was sanding it, that just came off as a plug. So then I hit it with some more UV resin and cured that, and then I took my rotary tool here with a round head and ground it down to where I think it's pretty flat, but we'll find out when we get some primer on it, which again is a good chunk of the purpose of having primer to begin with. So that's where we're at on this. So I'm just going to run out now and hit it with a coat of varnish, not varnish, primer, and see how it looks. So this is kind of interesting. So this is the piece I reprinted, and this is the original. So the one that was causing problems. So again, I decided to print that one solid just because I'm going to have the full weight of that leaf resting on this. But this is the old other side, and I think I did a pretty reasonable job of filling in this gap here and sanding it. you can still kind of see it, but I think I feel okay with that. But so the funny thing is, so I got this all primed and gloss coated and everything, and then everything was fine, and then I went out to check it, or to pull it in, and it had cracked here and here. So I'm assuming that that was because of the heat, because it's pretty hot here right now, and so I'm assuming that snapped because of the heat, but it also doesn't want to just like push closed. I don't have a lot of resin leaking out, so that's a good thing, but yeah, I don't think I can save this very easily. I could possibly heat it up and try to smush it back together and glue it, but I'm just going to try and print it solid, so we'll see how that goes. So I've got that cooking right now in the 3D printer, and yeah, I'm going to just have to start over on this one. So it has just been a comedy of errors with this thing. So I printed out this arm again after this one broke, and there's a bunch of goose skin on here in the back that I've got to clean off. But so there's a film on the bottom of the resin tank that allows the UV resin, or the UV light, to come up through and cure the resin, and I noticed that it had a hole in it and resin was getting down on the actual screen, which is a problem. So I replaced that, and what I didn't realize, and it didn't really call out on the packaging, is that there is a film on the resin, and so when I printed this and I didn't take the film off, like I guess I should have, I think that when that was coming down and printing, I think it was actually sticking to that film a little bit, and it was like pulling on it a little bit when it went up. So if you look at this right here, this is all really smooth right here. It's probably hard to tell because it's all white, but that's really all smooth right there, except for the part where I filled in that hole. So this is what it did, if you can see that. So we've got all these little like grooves and things in here, and I don't really mind that so much on the cloth. In fact, it actually kind of makes it look a little bit like it's cloth that's bending. The problem I have is on the arm here. Maybe I can grab a marker here. It's got a groove there and one there. There's kind of one in the hand. There's one up here. One right there. In fact, this whole hand is kind of twisted. So I'm printing again. I've replaced the film again. And the last time I tried to print, I did 2 of these on there just in case one of them had a problem, and they both fell off and were printing or stuck to the membrane. So had to clean that all up, and I'm printing again. So I've got this thing like 90% done, and the arms are just killing me. So even though that's printing, I'm going to see if I can fill in with some putty on the hands here, on the arm, and see if I can do that. I might try a little bit here. The rest of this isn't really something that's bothering me a lot. Got a little bit of a crack through here, but that doesn't really bother me. Not enough to worry about. And then it did this on the end. So yeah, we'll just try and hedge our bets a little bit and put some putty on this and see if I can salvage this one in case the other 2 don't work. This was the original arm, and as you remember, it's split, and I filled the gap with some putty, but down in here it's still split. But I thought, worst case scenario, this might still be salvageable if I just very carefully filled and sanded the crack. And I think leaving this little gap here will keep it from breaking again, but we'll see, because I am going to prime all of these. Now this is the one that I just had printed earlier today and had a number of cracks and wrinkles in it because of the issue I had with the film on the bottom of the resin tank. So that's also a backup. Now this is the one I just finished, and it does have the goose skin here, so I'm going to have to fix this up a little bit before I take it out to sand. But this one turned out nearly perfect and is solid printed. So yeah, this right now is my front runner, but I'm going to prime these as well just as a backup, because I've gone through enough trouble with these. I want to get this model done by the end of this week. And then here's a bit of an oddity. I didn't take the supports off, so if you're not familiar with 3D printing, the way 3D printing works is this surface here adheres to a plate, and then it lowers down into a vat of resin. And so initially the first layers that it printed would be up here. As it first went down into the resin was exposed from underneath through that clear membrane with UV light, and then cured, and then it would lift up a little bit and come back down and do the next layer, and all the way down through hundreds of layers. I don't know how many this one was. But the weird thing is, so here's the one I'm going with, and here's this one, and they both were put together on the same program that slices each layer to let us know what, or to let the printer know what to expose it to, and also like it was identical as far as like the supports, which are these things, because you can't just have something build out in thin air. It has to have something that it's building from when it's going up and down. And so that's what all these little things do. They also help keep this attached to the build plate. But the weird thing is, so this support here, for whatever reason, even though I just copied and pasted it once the supports were put in, this support decided it would be a good idea to go all the way through the arm and come out here. The other really weird thing I've never seen before is this portion of this arm is missing. And in profile, this profile here matches this, just flattened out. So I think what happened is, for whatever reason, this portion here was getting stuck onto the surface of the membrane, starting about here, because this is where it would have attached to these supports. And then as it came down, it kept getting stuck to the platform, or the membrane. But then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it detached and the rest printed normally, which I have never seen anything like that before in my printing. So I thought that was interesting, so I cured it as it is, just as kind of like an example piece of some of the weird stuff that can happen. But if you look here, this is kind of weirdly compressed, so there was something going on with that. So I will see if I have similar weird artifacts going on in that area of the membrane in future prints, but I suspect it probably had something to do with whatever happened when this happened. It probably did something to the actual model. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and prepare this and sand it up and then prime it, and then hopefully tomorrow I can start working on the final stages of painting this arm and the other arm and assemble this miniature.